Worship features a chambered nautilus on its cover. Perhaps you're familiar with the poem by the same name, The Chambered Nautilus, by Oliver Wendell Holmes Sr. In one stanza of the poem, Holmes writes, "Year after year beheld the silent toil that spread its lustrous coil as the spiral grew. It left the past year's dwelling for the new." Each coil in the spiral is bigger to accommodate the growth of what Holmes called its tenant, the creature that spun those spiral coils around itself. I think the metaphor of a chambered nautilus serves us well in a morning that we hear from women who have lived long and well and continue to create and move into lustrous chambers large enough to accommodate their wisdom and their experience. Among them, we're talking about Alice Miller and Margaret Stewart and Betty Richmond. Among them, they have 257 years of wisdom to share. 144 of those years have been spent at this congregation. When I invited Alice, Margaret, and Betty to participate in this worship service, I asked each of them to respond to one of the questions we heard in this morning's meditation. I want to know what sustains you when all else falls away. This morning we were privileged to hear a small part of their journeys from chamber to chamber, and in particular to hear what inspired and motivated them toward the next chamber, through limitations and adventure, through sorrows and pain, through duty and possibility. What has held you steady? I asked them. What inspired you to continue building the next chamber, though all else had fallen away? I began with Alice Miller's reflection. Alice is 95 years old and joined this congregation 64 years ago, signing the membership book in 1949. When I first asked Alice to consider being part of the service, she was hesitant and humble. I encouraged her to think about my question through the lens of creativity, and in that moment she quoted "Ode on a Grecian Urn" by John Keats, which frankly sent shivers down my spine because it was so true to who I understand Alice to be, and it just came flowing out. It was a beautiful, wonderful moment. So thank you, Alice, for trusting me to read your reflection to the congregation this morning. It's my honor to do that. So these are Alice's words. "Thank you, Carmen, for asking me to participate in your program. Knowing I could not trust my 95-year-old vocal cords, I was left with the alternative of putting my words on paper. Writing proved to be a difficult assignment. Preparing something like this gives one a good chance for soul searching. I am not a true believer. That is to say, I approach new ideas and hypotheses with as open a mind as I can manage. I find it hard to believe there is intelligent design behind the universe. It still remains a mystery to me. But I have come to believe a person can affect another simply by the way they conduct themselves. This little incident happened years ago when the family had moved to Illinois, where my husband accepted a position with the American Dental Association in Chicago. We moved to Barrington, Illinois, and became members of the beautiful North Shore UU Church near Deerfield. This was the nearest UU church we could find. I immediately joined the church, and as an artist found ways to contribute. The card I designed then is still being used by that congregation. It was a happy time with good friends. Then in 1971, after 30 years and 5 sons, my husband asked for a divorce. It was devastating. The news that my husband had left me soon became common knowledge, but I was fortunate to have support from good friends. It took months to regain a normal outlook. My confidence was at an all-time low. But at some point, I made a conscious decision to be happy, to look happy, to smile, and I did. And after a couple of years, I realized I was happy. What amazed me was a little note that I received from someone in the congregation. It read, "I'm not one to do this, but you have been an inspiration to me from afar for 2 years now. To see your smiling face in front of us weekly is a joy I prefer not to miss. I'm trying to regain whatever outlook you have to smile through all that is not nice. Thank you." And he signed his name. 7 years later, I married a wonderful man from the UU Choir. On his retirement, we moved to Oak Creek, Arizona, a small village near Sedona, surrounded by spectacular vistas of natural beauty. It is called the most uniquely beautiful site on earth. While it is beautiful, I still prefer the friendly green hills of western Pennsylvania. We spent 14 years at Oak Creek and were involved in helping a small dedicated group of UUs to grow to become a significant force in the community. And one of my favorite quotations from John Keats' Ode on a Grecian Urn, Keats sounds to me like a Unitarian. He ends his verse with these words: "Beauty is truth, truth beauty. That is all you know on earth and all you need to know." Even after being raised as a Catholic, Unitarianism has had a much greater influence on my thinking and on my life. Thank you, Alice. Thank you. So I now want to welcome Margaret Stewart to come forward and share her reflections on that which has held her steady. Margaret has been building chambers for 81 years and has spent the last 18 years of those with us. She joined our congregation in 1995.
Good morning. Good morning. As I look out at all of you and realize that you have been so kind to Ray and me through the last few months, I've shared some of our moments of our life's journey with you during joys and concerns. But I now have 5 minutes to talk about what I think is really important. I'm going to start off with, it may not be really important, but there's been a guilty pleasure in my life. More than one, probably, but one I can talk about. The TV show, Everybody Loves Raymond. That show made me laugh, and I could identify with the characters. Raymond was the father of Ali and twins Michael and Jeffrey. Deborah, his wife, felt that Ali needed to talk about the birds and the bees and instructed Raymond to do the job. She said that she did enough around the house, that this was his job. After much anguish and studying, Raymond, armed with many books, goes to his daughter's room where she tells him what she's really concerned with is, why are we here? What does God want us to do? This shakes Raymond up considerably, and he hurriedly exits her room, gathering up all his books and magazines, and starts to sneeze, which he always does when he's in a tight corner. He goes downstairs where the family are all waiting to hear what's happening, and Marie, the mother-in-law, falls apart, runs around and grabs the Bible, frantically paging through and saying, I know it's in here somewhere. Raymond calls his priest, who is at dinner, but it is Robbie, the hefty brother Cup, who turns his eyes heavenward and says, God, you put us here with no instructions. We don't know why. Come on! That's sort of the way I felt over the years. I was born in Manchester, England, during the Depression. My mother and father were married in 1928 and spent the early years of their marriage going from bad to worse financially. Then, in 1939, World War II began, which wasn't a lot of fun, with air raids almost every night and strict rationing and austerity. When I was 16 and had graduated from high school, I took a job at a trades union main office. I became very interested in politics and used to go canvassing for a candidate for Member of Parliament. I might add that the Member of Parliament never got in while I was doing the canvassing. But after I came over here, he got in, so it took a little time. I met my Ray, over the next few years, and I decided to come to America. We were married in 1952, and during the next 12 years, had 4 children. Life was busy and exciting for me during that time. My spiritual life was only just beginning. My family in England had been nominal Christians, hardly ever going to church and never discussing our beliefs. The few times I went to the Church of England, huge cathedral-type church, I went and saw the minister way up high in the pulpit, speaking over the heads, it seemed, of about 12 and 14 other people. I felt a little involvement. When our children were school age, we became Methodist. And actually, I learned a great deal in those churches. Many Bible studies, but very little discussion and absolutely no questioning, which was considered to be a lack of faith. We backed out of church for a while, until Millie and Wayne Roadhouse, members of this church, invited us here. I was delighted, especially with the Universalism part of our denomination. I read many books and enjoyed many discussion groups and have become a happy UU. The principles I hold on to are, number 1, the golden rule. After all these years, I think it boils down to the golden rule. Do unto others that which you want them to do unto you. And also the negative. Do not do unto others which you do not want them to do unto you. The second, close second, is universalism. We are all in this together. And then the third, I'm just becoming very much acquainted with, partly because of Carmen's discussion groups, is compassion. I've depended greatly on the inspiration and love that I've discovered here, and with Carmen as our minister, look for many more years of service for our church. Thanks.
Thank you, Margaret.
Thank you.
Margaret, maybe in the compassion group later today, you can tell us about some of your other guilty pleasures. Thank you for sharing that. And now we invite Betty Richmond to come forward to share her reflections with you. Betty is also 81 years old and has been a member here for 62 years. She signed a membership book on October 14th, 1951.
Well, the three of us are all Unitarians, so it figures they all will be different. This I believe, that inside every older person, there is a younger person wondering, what the hell happened? Now, and I also, some of my wisdom, I think, which is very dubious, is that I believe that the things we worry about don't happen. Other things do. But now seriously, I believe that we all play some role in the great tapestry of life. I feel very strongly that our children are the hope of the future. I hope our governments will wake up to this fact, and all parents to their responsibility to the next generation. I believe that the Spirit speaks louder than words. Jefferson said that it shows in our lives, not from words that must be read ritualistically. It was the negativity and exclusiveness of the Presbyterian doctrine that led me to this church 62 years ago, although I had been approved by the Presbytery for full-time Christian service. It's been an adjustment. Those we love are never lost to us. Their love surrounds us if we truly seek it. I believe that accepting the pulsation of pain, loss, misfortune, and disappointments are part of life and may indeed make us stronger. Helen Keller wrote, "We could never learn to be brave and patient if there were only joy in the world." I am not afraid to die. I've had near-death experiences in the past and have seen the shaft of white light. I whispered then, "Not yet." I was diagnosed 4 years ago as being at stage 4 of cutaneous T-cell lymphoma, very rare and incurable. Dr. Suden said I'd already had it 10 or 12 years, as it was indolent and grew slowly and hard to detect. A year later, he said he couldn't help me. I had 2 months to live, he said. Get your affairs in order, he said. And that was in spring 2010. Scary, but Dr. Pless connected me with a wonderful doctor at UPMC Pittsburgh. I had a new lease on life, thanks to especially to Ted and Sue Malik, who took this zombie, which I had become, to see Dr. Larissa Geskin, wise, caring, internationally known Dr. Geskin. She said, "You are sick, but I have seen sicker people and older people, and they get better and live to be 90, and I expect you to do that too." And so I became a guinea pig in her research studies for the next 3 years. Chemo pills, chemo infusions that were killing the cancer but almost killed me, hard side effects, inoculations, vaccinations, photopheresis, creams, lotions including nitrogen mustard, you know, what they used for poison gas in World War I. The hives thoughtfully have erupted where my clothing covers them. And they're not real big, but they're not good either. I get rid of some, and more come. Like in Walt Disney, the Sorcerer's Apprentice. Well, the killer chemo this past September made me a zombie again. When I came home from 2 weeks in the hospital, hospice nurse Becky thought I didn't have 2 days to live, but I have surprised them. I'm a lot better, but still have my incurable cancer. I believe it will eventually kill me. I'm not sure when. But meantime, my quality of life is pretty good. I'm thankful to be here, especially at this wonderful pulpit. And Dr. Geskin says I've contributed a lot to her studies, but no more chemo. I want to thank all the wonderful people who, you know who you are, who said prayers and said good thoughts to me, and who taxied me back and forth to Pittsburgh weekly at one point. In addition to my family and friends, music has kept me going. from my mother singing nursery rhymes to my participation in choruses and choirs from grade 3, 1938, to 2010. Music has saved my sanity through the years, especially Brahms' German Requiem, through at least one especially difficult time. I'm grateful that we have some wonderful hymns that help, such as Spirit of Life. I wrote this before I heard. And Mother Spirit, Father Spirit. And For the Earth's Forever Turning, but my favorite is Fiery Force. Thank you for listening to me. And I'll let my son, my wonderful son Mark, help me down.
I want to thank Alice and Margaret and Betty for sharing these parts of their chamber-to-chamber journeys with us this morning. Let us pause for just a few moments to consider what they've said, to let those pearls of insight settle safely into our own hearts.